Overall, I feel like the Swiss chard may have set my tomatoes back. It's tough to tell if it's maybe the variety because these are all Brandywines right here. But I do think that a combination of the Swiss chard and the soil compaction was an issue with this bed, as well as this bed. It's tough to say though that it was one thing or the other with these two beds. So both of these beds got Swiss chard in them, and that was just really me just trying to get something in the soil to have some roots in the soil. But these two beds also did not get broad forked, and they also didn't get a very large amount of compost. So I'm thinking there's a combination of the Swiss chard taking up nutrients as well as soil compaction that are stunting these tomatoes in these beds. So I'm going to go through, rip out all the Swiss chard, and I think with this bed I will leave it alone. I'm going to give it some fertilizer and see what happens, but the other one I'm considering taking out the other plants and putting my tomatillos in there. So still kind of deciding what I'm going to do with that, but we'll see what I decide. I just got all the Swiss chard removed from both of the beds, and what I think was happening is that the Swiss chard was pulling up more nutrients and then also moisture. So it was helping lock the moisture into the soil. So when I dig down, I was actually kind of surprised that the soil has got just enough moisture in it. But I think with so much Swiss chard in one place, it was pulling away from the tomatoes. So I had mentioned that I was going to possibly pull a bunch of tomatoes out and just put my tomatillos in here. I would have broad forked, worked some soil in, some compost I mean, and then fertilizers. But I'm gonna let these things keep going. I just checked the compaction. I just used my little gopher prod. I use this to find the gopher holes. And I was actually pretty surprised that the compaction, I mean, without putting too much force on it, I can get down over 12 inches. So I really don't think it was a compaction issue, at least not in this bed. I'll go check the other bed here in a second. But I think the issue is that when I put in the Swiss chard, you know, I just put it in initially just to, you know, get some roots in the soil, to stimulate the soil life. But I probably should have removed the Swiss chard when I put the tomatoes in, so there was no competition with the tomatoes and the Swiss chard. So now that Swiss chard's all removed, I will be putting some other plants in here. So I've got some flowers like gomphrena, and then I've also got some lettuce leaf basil that I'll put in both of these beds. And then I'm also going to dress them. I'm going to dig down with my hori hori and put in some worm castings that's got a blood meal in it, and I'll see if that gives them a little life. So we'll see what we can salvage with this bed. Well, damn. So what I was looking for was my prod. It's over in that bucket right there. So I really don't need it, but I checked the compaction in this bed, and some areas are about 4 inches, but a lot of the area, you can feel the compaction about maybe 10 inches down overall. So again, I'm not concerned with this other bed here as far as compaction. I think this other bed here was the Swiss chard out competing and pulling nutrients away from the tomatoes. So nutrients as well as water. The Swiss chard is a very, you should call it like a fibrous plant. So it's got a lot more moisture that's pulling to fill the leaves and everything. So maybe that was what was going on. So same thing with this one, as I'd mentioned on the previous bed, is I'm just gonna side dress my tomatoes with the worm castings with blood meal and see if that'll perk them up. So all I'm gonna do is take my hori hori and kind of scratch in little trenches that I'll fill with blood meal. And you can't see this trench here, so let me see if I can get a little bit better of an angle on it. So just really just kind of in between all the plants, I'm just going to put little trenches in here, and then fill this with the worm castings, give it a good water. Right now the soil is actually nice and moist. It's surprising. I thought it was actually somewhat dried out if you look at these, but I really think it's a nutrient issue. Yeah, so I'm gonna just do that, water these things in well. I'll plant my basil and my gomphrena along the sides just to get more life in the soil, and find a new place for my tomatillos, which I've already got something else lining up for that one. So yeah. the best way to end a video. Just say, so, yeah. So this is a puppy here, just in the garden. Help me water the bed. As you see, this is another practice you can use. You put your hose down, and if you have a black lab puppy, it helps diffuse the water. Now see, look, it's flowing around the side of him there, which is actually pushing the water further around back. So if you got a low-lying area, you get a lab puppy, you get him to sit there, it's going to help push that water back. The issue is, he may lay on your plant, but the risk versus reward is this guy is just so adorable that if he kills the pepper plant, you know, I can live with that, because just look at this. Look at this little guy here. Yeah, there he is. This video will be posted after this little guy is delivered to my mother. It's a little special 4th of July prize for her. I really hope she enjoys. If not, if she doesn't want him, he's more than welcome in my garden anytime, as long as he's still a puppy. Once he's older, I'll probably kick his ass a little bit. Kidding. No animal abuse, but he's adorable as he's eating my pepper. Next scene. All right, well, here's the final product. See, that's the lettuce leaf basil right there, and then gomphrena right there. These are some leftover peppers that I had. Those are planted as a sacrificial crop for the gophers. This area is really, really high in gopher activity. The bed right over there, you see there's some beans. The entire thing used to be beans. Now you see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 over there, and 5. So the gophers have taken all the beans from over there. So my idea was to plant peppers in here that I don't care if they get attacked by the gopher or the puppy. He likes wet soil. He loves the lettuce leaf basil. So with these beds, all I did was pull out the Swiss chard. I just cut it down to the roots. I didn't take out the roots. Again, I want those roots to stay in the soil because they're helping keep beneficial bacteria and all the good stuff in the soil. But I did put worm castings in between each plant, and then I interplanted with basil and gomphrena, as well as this bed over here. Did the same setup, and I'm hoping what I'll see is a little more life from these tomatoes. Everything on the other beds is doing fine, so comparison shot right here to the other tomatoes. So I think the Swiss chard was definitely pulling a lot more nutrients from the tomatoes. See, all the other tomatoes down the line are doing just fine. And in this area, I just pulled up my lettuce and have got the hose running. I just dug a temporary little channel so that as that hose is running, it just kind of helps get a nice deep water in there. I am going to be going through at some point and putting in drip irrigation. It's not something I wanted to do, but I do think it's necessary. I'm going to try to adapt the layout of the drip irrigation to the way I garden, which is just kind of sporadic. So see how that goes. But I have got the overhead sprinklers on now, watering once every 4 days for 90 minutes in the morning, just to get me by until I get the drip irrigation in. So that is it for today. As always, hope you enjoyed the video. Stay dirty, and remember, things will die in your garden. It's okay. Just plant a lot more than you need. Nature's going to take out some of it. Lack of care or nutrients is going to take out the other, and you'll consume the rest. So just plant a lot, stay dirty. End it. Bye, Lemmy.